Hey guys, Ronnie here. This week's episode is brought to you by NelsieSpencer.com. Everything Nelsie Spencer and Losing It is on NelsieSpencer.com. There you can find links to Nelsie's book, movie, and classes. Take Nelsie's writing classes or get one-on-one coaching and sharpen your writing skills. Take classes like screenwriting class and novel writing first draft. If you'd like to support the show, grab a couple things at the Losing It merch store where we have mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, hats like this one, the one I'm wearing, and much more. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out links to NelsieSpencer.com and other things such as the links to our equipment we use and all our social handles in the description down below. And if you want to contact us, tell us you love us, hate us, want to tell us you're losing a story and possibly have Nelsie read it on the show, email us at losingitcontact@gmail.com.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. If you got a story, we don't care if it's happy or gory, so come share your losing it story with us.
Hi guys, welcome to Losing It, the podcast that has guests on that tell a losing it story. And I don't know if I'll continue to say that every single time, but I might. So far I have.
So far.
I'm Nelsie Spencer so far, and I'm here with Ronnie Whaley. Hey, Ronnie.
Yes, hello. I'm on the podcast where we have a guest that tell a losing it story.
Ronnie Whaley, my producer and partner in crime.
Yes.
Yeah. So how the heck are you, Mr. Whaley? Or Ronald, as Heidi calls you.
Yeah. She when she says that, it reminds me of like school when I would get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Every time she says it, I think you're in trouble. I think you're in trouble. She's not even saying it to me. Well, Ronald.
Ooh, he's in trouble.
Heidi's mad.
Yeah. Good. My leaving date, my departure date is approaching. So that's it's starting to become very real, after being in
it
the
is
cabin
very
for so
real.
long. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be a whole new world, right? You're gonna be out in the world. You're gonna go to New York first.
Actually, I was talking to my dad last night, and he said he was worried about me coming back because of the Philippines right now. So apparently they might be shutting down the city of Manila on August 15th. I land on the 12th, but I'm quarantined in a hotel for 10 days. So if they shut down the city and I can't leave the city, then I'm stuck in the city.
My God.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. I have a friend who knows some people.
But you're vaccinated. Doesn't that buy you anything?
Yeah, well, not really. No, well, you know what it buys me? It buys me 3 less days in quarantine. So
okay, all right.
Still not much. So yeah, now I'm talking to my dad about a backup plan if I were to stay in Manila. See what happens. I don't know. We have an apartment there, so I don't know how I'm going to get access to it, but we'll see.
Oh,
yeah.
You have to sneak out in the night. Jeez. And it's like espionage or something.
Yeah,
man. Wow.
So it'll be interesting content for podcast conversation.
Exactly. It's all about content.
That's why that's why I'm fine with it.
That's what more is life but shit to talk about on the podcast,
Exactly. That's all my life now, really.
Yeah. Well, it was really good that I became a writer but even before I was a writer, when bad stuff would be happening, I would think, this is going to make such a good story. It means such a good story. I mean, right now I'm hospitalized and I'm hemorrhaging, but oh my God, what a good story.
Which is a great outlook. It's a great way to look at life.
Yeah. Everything's material.
It kind of is. Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. So you're getting ready to go. I'm not going anywhere. I'm trying to think if I have anything exciting to report. Not really.
Well, we have a great guest.
Oh my God. We have such a great guest. Like when she said yes, you got her, Ronnie. When she said yes, I was all tingly. I'll admit it. She's really funny. She's really smart. She's got 2 podcasts. And And she's incredibly sweet. And I shouldn't say that with incredible surprise, but I don't know. I don't know if I always think of comics as being sweet, especially because she's a road comic and she's been doing it for 37 years. Anyway, we have the amazing, wonderful, funny, and sweet Jackie Kashian. So check it out. So hi, guys. I'm very excited about our guest. I discovered her through Do You Need a Ride? One of my favorite podcasts. It's like sometimes when I walk the dog, I have literally looked in my feed and gasped with joy when I see that a new Do You Need a Ride episode is out, because they always have great people on. They always have really funny people on. And that's how I found out about Jackie and met the amazing, funny, smart, and so what's the word I'm looking for?
I think genius, present.
Oh, genius. Thank you,
There
Jackie.
you go.
Genius.
How can I?
Genius, stunning. And she has 2 podcasts. She tours. I mean, it's just amazing. And so I'm really happy to welcome Jackie Kashian. Hi, Jackie.
Yay, I feel welcome. Yay. Hello. I'm so glad you listened. That is one of the silliest. It was actually quite useful. Do you need a ride? When I needed a ride a couple of times, it was quite nice.
And it's a podcast that's been around for quite a long time. And it's Karen Kilgariff and Chris Fairbanks driving while they podcast.
Sure. The one in the shotgun does all the tech. That's the good thing. That's the good news. And then you in the back seat are often, and except for that, I think I just did one, and of course we went nowhere because we were all in quarantine, and that was different. That was like this.
Yeah, and turns out they don't. Karen and Chris do not have to be in a car to be funny. So
no, they do not.
So I found out I discovered you there, and then I immediately started following you on TikTok and your Instagram. And then I even went to one of the things you were doing during the pandemic.
Yeah, which I will do again just because I like them. They're Zoom shows they're just stand-up shows on Zoom, preparing for my new album, which I recorded last week.
Oh, fantastic.
Finally. And happy as a clam that's done, but not done, but at least I
thought it was called Happy as a Clam.
Happy as a Clam. No, it's called Staycation, actually.
I like it.
Because who doesn't like a pun?
Live for them. So is that something that was probably going to come out earlier, and then we had this whole
several years ago? Yes, it was all going to happen. Late 2019, early 2020, late 2020, and now it's finally recorded middle 2021.
Fantastic. And do you have an idea of when it'll be available?
Nope. I'm hoping by September. I'm hoping by August, but let's try to be realistic. Everybody's got to get their ducks in a row, and we'll see.
Yeah. Did you have fun? Did you have fun recording it?
Finally, yes, sort of. Yeah, but it was so delayed that I was like, I don't know. I just need to get these jokes out so I never have to tell them again.
Oh, God, right?
Unless I want to. That's right.
Because we live in America, damn it, and you don't have to tell a joke that you don't want to tell.
No. My father seems to feel that way, that he has to. But
well, and let's talk about your dad a little bit, because you talk about your dad a lot in your stand-up, or at least it seems to me like he comes up a lot, because has he done anything lately that's been really annoying or worth mentioning?
Well, in the new album, what I tell him, as soon as the album falls, as soon as I record an album, I always say, now you can't die until I get another 20 more minutes. Because what happens is I end up writing 20 minutes about him, and then it gets cut down to about 12 when it goes to the album. And this album has 12, good 12. He was like, if you got 20 minutes of material about me in an album, that is no longer your album. That is my album. And I was like, fair enough.
And he starts talking percentages. You know,
for sure. He would like a taste. Who doesn't want a little taste of the back end? Come on. It gets gross when it's your
right.
father-daughter.
I gotta get on your tight. What is it? On your kite strings? What's that damn expression?
Coattails.
Coattails. Oh my God. Yes, coattails. So you're coming out. First of all, where are you right now, Jackie?
I am in Los Angeles. I've been on the road 7 weeks since the first weekend in April is when I started going out every week in the hopes to put this to tighten it up in front of real audience, like live audiences. Because I was doing Zoom shows every week, and I'd be doing 3 to 5, and but the timing is different, right? When you're in front of actual humans versus doing it over the internet. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So 7 weeks out, and then I recorded last week at Acme in Minneapolis.
Right on. I'm so happy. So what was it like? I mean, I know that you've probably answered this question 100 times, but so first of all, I think it's amazing that you during the pandemic, I mean, I think you so had a pass to not do anything. Do you know what I mean? You're a comic, but
we all do. We all did, but imagine the depression. Right.
Yeah.
Imagine and there were comics who didn't, and they were super depressed. And I was like, "Do you want to set on my Sunday show?" And they're like, "It's not real." And I'm like, it's arguably as real as doing Victorville, a Best Western in Minot, North Dakota. It's arguably as real as any weird gig you've ever done in Huntington, Alabama, Birmingham, whatever.
I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And part of what I liked about it, I'm a writing teacher. And so since this has happened, everything's Zoom. And I find that there's a certain intimacy to Zoom that's kind of cool,
for sure.
And when I came and watched your Zoom comedy show, I loved it because I felt so much more a part of, like, because when you go to a comedy club, you're sitting in the audience and then the comics come up and they're all backstage or in the green room or whatever. But I was like, they were hanging out with me. So it had this, I don't know, it had for me as an audience, I really liked the vibe.
Yeah, it definitely has a really, because everybody's in their own box. One of the things I liked about it was that everybody's name was on the screen, and I could be like, "Hey, Ben, how's it going today?" And he'd be like, "It's going pretty good, Jackie." And so, I mean,
Thanks for asking, Jackie.
Yeah, exactly. And so everybody's been super nice. And you kind of got to know people a little bit. I'd have to meet them again in real life again to get to really know them. But it was huge, right? It was
80 people on. There was a lot of people on when I was there. It was really awesome.
It was usually around 25, 30, up to about 120.
Yeah.
And one time Maria Bamford was guest setting, and she accidentally posted it publicly, the link. So there were almost 400 people. So I was like, this is great. It's going to affect. But there were also Zoom bombers who were just being jerkweeds. And then we kicked them out because you got that kind of power. That's right.
Yeah,
you got power
love
when
that
you're
power.
the Zoom host.
Bye-bye. You're gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always make people co-hosts. I like to share the power. That's what I'm about, sharing the power.
Well, I love that you did it. And it was very much like, look, I'm going to do it. You can go and you can, I don't remember if it was Patreon or if it was
Venmo. It was Venmo. Or PayPal.
I sent you money. I was like, yeah, damn. Because it was
literally, and the money was just to sort of get rid of the Zoom bombers and to make some money over the 16 months, right? So I would just say $5. And if you don't have $5, just email me. And I will send you a link so you can sit in your home and not be sad that we're all trapped inside of our own homes. So it was a nice way to spend an hour and a half,
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. And I think that's just one example of things that came out of the pandemic that were like, first of all, we never thought, oh, gee, when the pandemic comes, what will I do? Right. We weren't prepared for it. And so suddenly you find yourself doing that. And creating this whole community and this whole new way to connect and to do comedy. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, I liked it. And I will continue to do it because there were people who are very rural who never get stand up, right? They don't get
such a good point.
They can't come to clubs. Some people are housebound for other reasons, never get to come to clubs. And plus I was doing so many guest sets. People are like, I've never heard of any of these people. They've barely heard of me, right? So they come to see me, and then they get to see a couple more comics that they're like, well, she's hilarious. He's great. What's with this person, that person, right? And then I got to hang out with comics which is a big part of my social life in life forever.
Yeah. So it's really like a win-win-win-win-win, right?
It's 1,000 wins. There's very little negative to it. The only bad thing was I ended up buying the most expensive Zoom account, $2,000 a year.
What?
Yeah. See, people laugh, and then I tell them the number, and they're like, "What? What just happened?" And I don't think I got. And then it just renewed.
What? Can we talk to the Zoom people? That doesn't.
I've tried to talk to the Zoom people. They're like, next year. Make sure you cancel it. And I'm like, all right.
Wow.
So it's fine. It means I could have up to 1,000 people and 9 other administrators. Glass half full in the long run. Make lemonade. And I could write it off. Which
is so funny because one of the things that I did during the pandemic is I started something called the Lemonade Party, which is me doing this free party, turning lemons into lemonade, where I just invite people on for free. And I would do 2 writing prompts. And it was just sort of like a little writing. It was community, Right. And if you can make a $10 donation, great. And if you can't, that's okay too.
Exactly. Right. It's just, and a lot of the younger comics from around the country started coming to the Zoom shows. And then they'd be like, I do stand up. You ever have any extra spots on this Sunday Zoom show? I would love a spot. And I'm like, please, because everybody, that's the only way. It's the way you get spots in real life is you go and hang out and introduce yourself to the club owner, to the bookers, to the other comics. And so to do it on Zoom, though, they would pay $5 to come and hang out and then tell me that they do stand up. And I was like, please. And then everybody got like $20, right? So it was great when it was just 2 guest sets, but then I started getting lonely. And so I would do like 5 guest sets. And so it'd be $100. But that's fine. I wasn't doing it for the money so much, but, and everybody was super generous. There was a guy who always gave 20. And you're like, oh yeah. He's like, it's an hour and a half of my time and your time. And there's 6 comics. $20 seems fair. and he still has a job.
And you spend $7 on a latte. You know what I mean? I don't, but people do.
And they're only 5. I don't know why you got to exaggerate. What's happening? I get a latte.
I don't know. I don't do Starbucks only because I don't understand that when I can have free coffee at home.
Interesting. So you don't even go to the Independent?
Oh, I will. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing. Since the pandemic, and since I can do everything from home, and since I have a dog who I walk every day, and that gets me out of the house, and my husband does the grocery shop, like the pandemic for me has been so easy that I feel like, I don't know, that I'm going to be punished later for something. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just been
right. You
easy.
Hate to say that it was good just because of the loss of life and how sad it is.
Exactly.
And, and I was just hanging out with a friend of mine from high school, and I love him like a brother, but he just went to a 4-day polka fest in northern Wisconsin. Door County, I think. And it was Pulaski
Door
days.
County, Wisconsin.
Yeah. It was, he could probably dork out for the Dork Forest hardcore on polkas. That'd be kind of awesome. And he would be plug and play too. But he was telling me he had some, like once you start seeing something, you can't not see it then. And he started seeing, as he was driving around Wisconsin, a lot of dead trees. And now he can't stop seeing dead trees. And he's like, are they near cell phone towers? And I was like, did you want to invest in Reynolds Wrap? Because the tinfoil hat company is looking for investors.
But I do think it's a time now where, like, now that I know how much energy it takes to make the plastic container that my laundry detergent comes in, and that only 3% of plastic is recycled, like now I see everything through that plastic lens. Like, how can I use saran wrap? How can I use, and that's the world we're living in now. So, which, but the good news is you've got all these people out there who creating shampoo that looks like a soap bar and you rub on your hair and no more plastic. So,
yeah. There's people that are trying to fix it, and there are people that are, sort of given up. And then there are some people who are, who think that it's too big, right? They're like, the problem is too big. I can't fix it. And you're like, the problem is big and it is larger than you. But what you can do is you can help the person in front of you.
Yes.
That's the only, if it's the only thing you can do, you could try to make someone stay a little bit nicer. It's not going to kill you to not be an asshole at a grocery store. It's not going to, it's, you went out to eat. Why don't you over tip? Because those people, they're risking their lives talking to hundreds of people every day.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, and they're not well paid. So if you have a job that enables you to live indoors, this is genuinely my opinion, is that if you have a job that enables you to live indoors, help everybody else so that, because living indoors should fucking be a right. That should be a thing.
Absolutely.
I live in Los Angeles. There's a lot of people who do not live indoors, and it's a pain in my ass. Because I feel, I'm like, how can I pay taxes? Can we please funnel it towards something that isn't hitting those people? Instead, let's figure out housing for those people.
Let's figure out housing. Right. It just seems like that's something that should have been figured out by now. And in the meantime, how do you, like you said, be nice to your wait staff?
It's the least you could do, and you can do the least you can do. At the very least, do the least you could do.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is that since the pandemic, and I can do everything from home now instead of commuting into New York City and all of that. And turns out when there's a pandemic, people have time to write. So I have all these great clients, and I have had one of my best years financially this past year. So now when Dame Judi Dench comes into my Instagram feed and tells me about the bears in Russia, I send $50 because I can,
Right, you can. And it's been a good year. Yeah.
And whatever it is, it's like, I'll send 25 there or 5 there or whatever. Like, I feel so blessed that I can actually do that. And it does make a difference,
Yeah. Yeah, if at the very least you could do is send money to a couple of different people, which is what people did for me,
Yes. Yeah.
On the Zoom shows. So,
well, let me ask you a question, because I think, first of all, how long have you been in comedy, Jackie?
I count the 80s as 1 year. So I would say 32 years, but probably I started in 84.
Uh-huh.
So it could be 36. It depends why they're asking. If they're asking because they think I've only been doing it for 10 years, I tell them that it's 37 years.
Yeah, you say I started in the 1930s. So shut the fuck up. Right.
I was raised in the Appalachians. Please fuck off.
Here's why I asked, because I did stand up for like this long. Like I did it a little bit in the 90s before I had kids. And then I did it a little bit like in my late 50s. Don't ask me why. I thought that would be a good career move. And so I only have like a little snippet of the experience. And I know, first of all, I loved it when I did it, but I don't have the drive. And if you don't have the drive, it's not going to happen,
Right. And the thing is sometimes the drive is just the addiction to attention, the addiction to needing. And if you could find that outlet in something else, you win. Like when I was about 17 years into it, right? When I was probably 33 years old, I decided that I wanted a boyfriend. 35 maybe, because I had never done anything. I had never done anything but stand-up comedy. And then occasionally get laid because you need a tune-up sometimes. And so, I'm very classy. Anyway,
we need contact. We need contact. Right, and,
right.
We need, maybe we need penetration too. That's fine. That's a good thing.
Slot A, I'm a bottom. Very basic. And so.
Me too, I'm a bottom. I don't want to be on top. That's a lot of work.
So I decided, I was thinking about how I wanted something else out of my life besides stand-up comedy, because stand-up comedy very much saved my life, gave me self-esteem, gave me friends. It was a cult, but it was a cult of that gave me things back, right?
Yeah, and they didn't make you get a weird haircut,
Oh, you don't kid yourself. They did. They made me do all kinds of dumb things. But at a certain point, when you have bolstered yourself with that self-esteem, you could kind of take your life back a little bit. You could kind of look at your life from above and go, "Hey, man, I'm thinking of having a boyfriend. And so I started, and online dating had just been invented, and I'm not good in person with fellas. So online dating was kind of perfect for me. And 3 years later, I started dating a guy that became my husband. And that is something that this last year has taught me that's what I've wanted. You know, I've wanted that sort of community, but I'm also really glad that I waited,
Yeah.
because I have friends who got married when they were 22 years old, and most
insanity.
of them, a friend of mine they just got divorced. And it wasn't that they didn't still love each other. It's just, it's been 40 years.
So how old were you when you guys actually
39.
got married? You were 39.
I think I was 40 when I got married. So
yeah.
Beacon of hope, those of you with terrible socials.
I got married when I was 30, like minutes from being 31, and didn't have my kids until 37 and 39. And I'm really glad. Like when I think of people I was dating in my 20s, oh my God, if I had married them, like, really like, especially early 20s, like you're so clueless. You're so clueless, I think, when you're that young, that maybe you don't make the best choice.
Right. And usually, I mean, if you're lucky, you marry someone who's also an adult, or you're an adult.
Yeah.
Especially if you have children, because you're like, well, I need a partner, right? Especially with children and stuff. We don't have any kids. It just didn't happen. I was 40, I was 39. I had a miscarriage, and then it never happened again. And that's fine. We just got a dog, and I'm like, he seems like a lot of work, you guys. I don't know.
How long have you had the dog?
How long 5 months, 6 months.
Oh, wow. So you really are a new dog owner.
Yeah, I've always wanted a dog. Always. We finally get a dog in February. And I genuinely love this dog. He is a middle-aged dog, right? He's well trained. He is a gentleman. He is an adorable little doggy. And because we had a choice between Chihuahua mixes and Pit Bull mixes, and I wanted a dog that I could win a fight. So we got a little Chihuahua mix, and he is sitting right here next to me. He's a very good sport.
Oh, I love him.
But he is needy because he is a dog, and he has needs, but he also fulfills some of my needs.
Oh, absolutely!
So it's a beautiful. Who knew I wanted to go for 3 tiny walks a day and talk to myself?
That is one of my favorite things about having a dog. Like I was always a person before, like the dog that I have now, she's our second dog. We got Rudy when my kids were 8 and 10, after I could no longer, because I did the bait and switch thing. They wanted a puppy when they were really little, and I got him kittens because I didn't want it. And I love dogs, but I knew it was going to be a lot of work, right?
Yeah. And 8 and 10 is exactly when they start saying, swear to God, Mom, we'll walk him, we'll clean it, we'll do all the things. And you're like, you're lying to my face, but I think we can do it, because at least I can yell at you and you will understand the sentences.
Exactly. And there she is.
Speaking of which, yeah.
So I'm just, okay. So what I was going to say is I never knew that I would like to go on walks, because I am a person that feels like, like I'm always doing 5 things, and walks are for losers. Like, what's the point of a walk? What are you getting out of a walk? And then you get a dog and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because it's just me and the dog, and nobody's asking me to do anything. And I'm actually.
Right. Because you're getting a little sunlight, you're getting a little exercise, you're getting a little solo time. It's all in a row. I didn't carry my phone today when I took him for a walk, and Andy and I kind of fight about who gets to walk the dog a little bit.
Oh, that's
we
cute.
both like the steps, and we go together sometimes, but it's not the solo time that you might need, especially in a quarantine pandemic. As much as I love him, he would like to be away from me for a second.
And so, but you guys survived. Your marriage beautifully survived the pandemic.
It kind of thrived. I've never been home.
Right, because you're always touring.
Yeah, for 16 months.
Isn't that great? What great news, though, that it thrived. I feel the same way with me and my husband. Like we really enjoyed being together. It was like, nice.
Yeah. I slept in a bed with him every night. We cuddled.
Oh, cuddling.
It was adorable.
It's
we
so
we
adorable.
continue to be adorable.
I love it.
But I spent a year staring at my face in Zoom. So I got I had a tooth that I
You got
just
your
got
tooth
fixed.
fixed.
Yeah.
It looks
So I was like,
fantastic.
yeah, it does, doesn't it? Hi.
It really does.
Pardon me while I smile too much.
No,
Hi.
it's really good. I noticed it right away. I did. All right.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could chat for a very long time because I have more questions. Because really what I wanted to ask you.
Well, talk to me about loss, Jackie.
Yeah,
Talk
let's
to me about loss.
you know what? Let's just shift gears a little bit here. You have a losing it story for me. Is that correct?
Sure. It's I thought about, it's funny, but it's also like people are shocked when I talk about my mother died when I was 7, except for I had just turned 8. And she was 30, she had just turned 34, I had just turned 8. In my spoken word, in the album, I say that I'm 7 and that she was 33. For the joke, the purpose of the joke, because 33 is the age of Christ. Was it a coincidence that she died when she was 33? Yes, entirely. And
yes, it was.
Yes, and so
she could walk on water.
She could not. She was actually enormously flawed, and but she was a very young woman. When she started having children, she got pregnant when she was 16.
Wow.
They married when she was 17, and my dad was 18.
Wow.
My dad joined the Navy. They had 6 children in 10 years.
My God.
They were separated when I was 4, and she died when I was 7. So she lived fast. She was trying to catch up again, once I was out of, she never got to be a kid, really. She never got to be a young woman.
Where were you in the birth order?
I'm youngest.
You're the baby.
Yeah, so my brother is 17 when I'm 7.
So where's Dad when Mom dies? Was he gone?
They had separated.
Oh, that's right, because you were 4 when they separated. Yeah.
Right, and he would not pay child support because she was an addict and was a mess. And so he sent the money to my grandmother, his mother, who lived in our same small town outside of Milwaukee. And so she fed most of the other kids, and then my brother Phil mostly fed me. And
Phil was the oldest?
Second oldest. My oldest brother is very funny, my youngest brother. So it goes Terry, Philip, Scott, Russ, Darla, Jackie. And so Terry's the oldest. He was 14 when they separated. And one of my brothers has always been like, there was a leadership vacuum. Terry should have taken advantage of that leadership vacuum. And the rest of us are like, he did. He got laid. He partied. He had the time of his 14-year-old life.
Oh, man.
So it was, he didn't become our dad. He was also a child.
And not his job to become your dad.
Right. And so my brother Phil, who was 12, started doing a lot of the cooking. And my sister Darla, who was, she would have been 9. She made sure everybody got up for school.
Wow.
And so between Phil and Darla, they did a lot of sort of the parenting roles. And my mother, she did as much as she could. I used to be so sad that I was so mad at her. And after she passed, no one mentioned her again. And if I brought her up, people would say, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. And so absolutely no one talked about her. About 15 years ago or so, my oldest brothers started talking about her again. And they would talk about her a little bit, but they had sort of canonized her because my father remarried almost immediately.
Wow.
To my stepmother, who was a great loss to the Austrian army. She was amazing. She was amazing. As my father's mother, my grandmother used to say, she fixed your lives. And she really did. There was no structure. She brought structure.
Yeah.
There was a certain amount of, she was sort of mad about it because she loved our dad so much, but she didn't want 6 kids.
Okay. So wait, I'm going to slow you down a little bit. So you're 7. mom and dad separate when you're 4.
Mm-hmm.
Dad goes off and marries the Austrian.
Nope. No, he just moves to Milwaukee and starts, making pretty good money and sending it to my grandmother and partying and having his time of his life.
Right, because he got married so young too.
Right. He was just a child as well. But he couldn't come to town because he was a deadbeat dad by the eyes of the law.
Oh, right.
But he would meet with my brother Russ once a week to give him a paper bag full of money to give to my grandmother.
And were you guys living with grandmother?
No, we were living with our mom.
You were just living with mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were living in an apartment that was dumb. It was like my sister and I shared a bed in the dining room.
Wow.
2 of my brothers were I think Russ and Scott were in that one room. Terry had the 1-season porch in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
An outside porch. And then Phil, I swear to God, I thought it was a pantry, but he was like, no, it was just a really small room. And I was like, it was kind of a pantry, buddy.
Yeah. Wow. So your dad didn't remarry until after your mom died?
Yeah, a year almost to the day.
Uh-huh.
Because my grandmother was like, you have to mourn for a year. And he's like, I have been mourning for 3 years, but okay. So my stepmother moved in. My dad and my stepmother were actually living together. And
they moved in the house that you guys were living in?
My dad moved into the house. And then within about 6 or 8 months, I think they bought a house with help from my grandmother and in the town. And so there's all these things like Nancy, my stepmother, from when I was 8 until I was 35. She passed away probably 9 years ago now. And my father, he continues. And he's hard on women. And he just keeps living. But she told me one time that he never told her that he had 6 kids.
Oh.
And she found out after my mother died. And then she married him anyway. I was like, wow, let's not take advice from her about men. So she loved Andy. She loved him.
Yeah. Wow. So I have one of my best friend lost her mom when she was 11, and she's one of 9, and she's the baby.
Okay.
And her mom wasn't an addict and
died of exhaustion.
Exactly. But it was a similar situation in that mom went away because she was sick, and then she died, and then they never talked about her again. She didn't get to go to a funeral, and then she had a stepmother who came in, and her stepmother was not the best stepmother. It was sort of, a Disney kind of a stepmother.
Nobody else liked, there's me and Russ. Everybody appreciates what Nancy did, but I was really the only one who kept in touch with her after we were adults. So
really,
yeah, just because, she, whatever, hit and miss. She did the best she could. Everybody is an adult trying to be the adult in a situation that they were not told that they were going to have to be the adult in.
Yeah, yeah.
When you realize that you have to be the adult, it's one of the most irritating realizations I think of any person's life, when you realize, oh, I'm the grown-up.
Yeah. And to realize that when you're like 7.
Well, yeah.
When do you think you looked around and went, oh, shit, the people who are taking care of me aren't really capable of it, or the people who are supposed to be taking care of me aren't capable of it?
I was very lucky. I never had that epiphany. My sister Darla had that epiphany. My sister Darla was her own parent.
Mm-hmm.
My sister Darla is literally happier and more carefree today than she has ever been in her life. She is more childlike. She has more joy in life than she ever did as a child.
Oh, that's so nice, though. It's heartbreaking because look, that kind of trauma can kill you, literally. That kind of trauma can kill you. It can, and it certainly can kill you.
It can ruin your entire life.
Absolutely.
It can color your entire life and make you not rise above it. And as my Aunt Alice always says, she's like, it's amazing you all lived. It's amazing you're all relatively successful. And it's amazing that you all lived, It's...
And what do you think And first of all, I'm so glad to hear that you all lived and that you're all relatively successful, right? Because there could have been quite a few cautionary tales out of all that, right? What do you think helped you to be somebody who not only survived, but who's thrived and who has a happy, wonderful marriage and cuddles with her husband and makes people laugh and has not one, but two podcasts and has this generous heart who creates, let's do a Zoom show. Just give me $5 if you can. How do you think that happened? Why do you think you turned out sort of the way you did, Jackie?
There's been a lot of speculation. And because I have friends from South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is this little factory town I grew up in in between Milwaukee and Racine. And friends who have almost the same story as myself, who have grown up to have much less full lives.
Yeah.
And have slipped into a lot of problems and sort of, mourning their childhood forever. And part of it was definitely Nancy Kashian, who rousted us and taught us how to, she was like, you will do chores. You will do your homework. We will eat meals together like a family. And at the end of this, we will love each other and no one will know why. Because we will, I remember, and I paraphrase, but the term quality time was invented when I was a kid in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying, I don't know what that is. We can't afford it, whatever it is. You're going to get quantity time from us. Because we can't afford time. You get a lot of time, and I'm going to need you to go outside a fair amount. And nobody's been able to send their kids out of the house for a year, right?
Oh my God!
So she used to send us out of the house. She's like, "You got to be back at 5 for dinner because we're all eating at 5:30, and you have to wash up and set the table and do things." There was a chore list where you would have. It was like a restaurant, like. Who was washing? Right. Who was drying?
Who's doing the dishes? Who
was doing the dishes? And what your responsibilities? If you washed the dishes, you had to sweep. If you dried the dishes, you had to wipe everything down. And you had to be there at 5. For every minute you were late, you were grounded a day.
Wow. So she was really hardcore.
Yeah. You had to make your bed every day.
Wow.
Every Saturday morning, we had chores. You could not go anywhere until the house was clean.
Wow.
You had to strip the bed on Wednesday. When you got back from school, you had to make the bed. You had to she would do the laundry, but you had to put away your laundry. She was like, it's not sitting on your bed. I folded it. You will put it away. You will make that bed. You will, and she would check. And
this, I'm guessing, Jackie, having been in a house where your mom, who wasn't doing so well, and so I'm guessing that there wasn't structure, there weren't rules, there weren't, right?
There was nothing. There was literally, I remember I was about 4 years old. I might have been 5. Yeah, I might have been 5 or 6 because I wanted to go to the pool and I didn't want to walk because if you went without a towel and without shoes, you didn't have to pay the dime. Hi, I'm 100 years old to buy a locker.
I'm 110, just so you know.
You could get in free if you didn't bring anything. If it was just you and your swimming suit, you could just walk in and go to the pool. But if you walked there without any shoes on, your feet would sometimes get tar on them. And if you couldn't get the tar off, they wouldn't let you in the pool.
Let you in the pool.
So I was like 5 or 6 years old in the summer. And so I decided to hitchhike to the pool.
Oh my God.
So I'm in my small town and I'm like 6 years old, hitchhiking on Milwaukee Avenue, which is the main street. And a car stops and a guy who's like 17 or 18 goes, "Aren't you Terry Kashian's little sister?" And I was like,
my
"Yeah."
God.
He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I want to go to Parkway. I want to go to the pool." And he's like, "I will give you a ride, but what are you doing? Don't do that. Get in." And so I'd get it.
That's the opening scene of the movie. I'm just telling you that's the opening scene. The opening scene is the 6-year-old hitchhiking and it pulls back, right?
Right.
Because that speaks volumes. We know that somebody's not paying attention. Or let me rephrase that. No one's paying attention.
Right. There's a certain amount of inattention going on. So I would go, and they were all at Parkway School. It's not like Terry and Philip and Scott weren't at Parkway School. My brother Russ, on the other hand, giant money nerd from birth, was hanging out with our grandmother. Because the thing is, so the things that saved us would have been Nancy Kashian,
Yeah.
my grandmother, Grandma Kashian, my dad's mom, and the Armenian church. So we would go to church every Sunday, and my dad would drop us off, and then he would go get coffee, and then he would come back, and then he would sit downstairs and drink more coffee, and he would wait for it to be over. And then and Nancy she went for a while, but the people at church were mad that she wasn't Armenian, much like my
That's so
birth
Christian
mother.
of them, isn't
It's
it?
very, very Christian.
So Christian of them.
Just super bossy mongoose. And so
I like that.
but it was super, like, it was very social. Like, it was good society, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like,
It was
Barry,
community.
was it Mary Basmajian? Whatever it was, one of them worked at the library. And so I would see her all the time because I was a little reading nerd, right? And so one year, when I think I was in 6th or 7th grade, it had to be 7th grade because I was allowed. Nancy was like, you got to be back by 5. After dinner by 6:30, I could leave the house, but I had to be back by 8 or 9 or something like that as I got older. And one year I couldn't get the library books back in time. And so I had a library fine. And once it hit $10, you weren't allowed to take out any more books.
Oh.
And one year, Mary Basmajian from the church paid my library fine, my $10, so that I could take books out again, so I could stop shoplifting books at Kmart. So good for her. But I'll tell you something, the year that I shoplifted books from Kmart ruined my taste in books, or did it? I read all the Harlequin romances.
I was just going to say.
All the Louis L'Amour novels.
So it just gave you a more well-rounded.
Right. Previously,
yeah.
I was only reading Civil War historical fiction. So something had to break at some point.
You needed some Harlequin romance. Come on. Wow. I had a interesting childhood. Well, I'm just going to use the word interesting. And different kind of interesting, but, divorce and parents that weren't paying attention. And I was the baby and the only girl with 2 big brothers. And there was a lot of self-parenting going on. And I think one of the big things that saved me was my siblings and the relationship I had with them and my sense of humor. And looking around, I did look around and go, oh, they don't know what they're doing. And I just started realizing that I had to figure it out at a pretty young age,
You are my brother Russ and my sister Darla. Both of them were like, we have got to get out of this situation. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
So how much therapy have you had, Jackie? That's a serious question. Yeah.
Yeah. Before I met Andy, I had therapy. I thought so during the 90s, my life became more and more complicated. I was drinking more and more. I was sad more and more. I was upset. I couldn't seem to have relationships with people. And
gosh, I wonder, how could that have happened?
I know. And so I met this woman. I don't even know who suggested her, but she was willing to do sliding fee scale, and she was amazing.
Wow.
She was a really, really good therapist. And
God, how lucky that is. That's fantastic.
It was amazing. Probably from 2000 to 1999 to 2002, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the money, and she was like, how much do you drink? And I was like, a lot. It's always free. And I find a couple of bucks to add to it every time I go out, and I drink a lot. I got a DUI in Minneapolis before I moved to Los Angeles. It was called a wet reckless. They sort of pled it down. And then when I think it was in 98, I got another DUI here in Los Angeles. And I stopped drinking. So I must have been going to her since I was like 97. It was probably 90. It was 3 years.
Yeah.
Because I was still drinking. And I remember her going, why don't you go to that program that's free? You know, that's free. It's a lot cheaper than I am. And I was like, you want to get rid of me? And she's like, I'm not saying that, but yeah. And but we did the deep dive into the childhood. We did the deep dive into the current situation. Because I tried 1,000 ways to stop drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Not to stop drinking. I never tried to stop drinking. I never thought the drinking was the problem, because drinking on itself just added to every problem I had, right? Like, I don't drink now because when I drank, it added to my depression. It added to my bad judgment. It added to my anger. It just, when I don't drink, when I'm sober, I'm at least present.
Yeah.
And I can go, oh, that's a terrible choice.
But that's a huge thing to do in any environment is to be able to do that. Whether you use a program, whether you do one day at a time, or whether you just say, I'm not going to, for today, I'm not doing it anymore. But to do it when you're in comedy.
I was worried about it. I was really, really worried about it. I didn't go on the road for 3 months.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid that I would just use it as an excuse to get drunk. And the first time I went out, I was featuring still on some of the road stuff. And the guy who was headlining was sober.
Isn't that nice?
He was a terrible comic. But he was not funny. But he was all
You're not
sober.
funny, but you're sober. So
I gotta hang out with you, buddy. We're gonna go to breakfast. We're gonna go to lunch. We're gonna do whatever you want. And so it was a certain amount of, and it added a certain amount of sanity to me. So that was the therapy I got, and then I do an ongoing sort of group therapy now. So
that's fantastic.
And there's a relief to bleeding off the nonstop committee meeting that is in my head. You just got to read the minutes to somebody. And my husband does not need to hear the minutes every time.
You just got to read the minutes I have never heard. Did you coin that? That's a good one.
It's mine now.
I like it. It is absolutely yours. So, let me ask you a question because, I listened to this podcast called Cure for Chronic Pain, and she talks about capital T and lower T trauma, and you had some capital T trauma, and
by definition, she defines that as capital T. Okay.
Nelsie, I'm not a licensed clinical social worker, but I think losing your mom at age 7 and a mom who's an addict and living in a home where you're not being parented and you're hitchhiking at age 5, I'm just gonna say that might be.
It feels ballparky. It feels like a lot. Yeah,
it feels like a lot. So you go to therapy, you get sober, or you stop drinking, and how has this, all these years and life and therapy and all of that, how has that sort of transformed, or has it transformed how you look at your mom? Because you lost her so young, and you had some people that, like you said, sort of canonized her. But I don't get the feeling that you did. So what's sort of the journey been for you about?
For both of them, for both of my parents, I wrote solo shows. I wrote stand-up about it. I processed it with stand-up. Stand-up can be used for that. The only thing you need for sure, I would say, if you're thinking about doing stand-up, you're going to need some punchlines. And because a lot of people,
because then it's not stand up. If
there's trouble. There's got to be some yucks. But I will say this is sometimes people, and it starts out this way, where you tell a story that you think is funny, but the only reason you think it's funny is because you lived.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I just saw a young woman do an amazing piece of work that will be very, very funny when it gets more punchlines. Right now, it's kind of shock jockey kind of, she was 12 or 13, dating a 25-year-old. That was us just going, what was happening? Wait, what? Did you call someone? And
because I did a one-woman show called Day of the Dead Daddy that I don't call stand-up, but hopefully is also very funny. And it's much more storytelling, and I play different characters. But what you don't want is the audience worried about you.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So Right.
It all ends okay. You just want and then I lived is you want everyone to know that you lived and it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's and it's I heard, and I wish I could remember this woman's name for the love of God. She did one of the funniest, most sad but powerful and hilarious stories of being raped.
Wow.
She did stand up about a gentleman, not a gentleman, a horrible, a broken human being who forced his penis into her several times. And she called the cops. And the cops were like, "Are you sure?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm sure." And they're like, "Well, sometimes we make regrettable decisions, and then afterwards we think it's something else." And she's like, "I didn't buy Maroon 5 tickets or whatever." Right? She's like, "This isn't." And they were like that, and they came every 40, 50 seconds. There was a punchline, and it was about her taking back the night. Man, it was pretty great. I have some material that borders on that sort of solo kind of thing, where it isn't as funny as it could have been.
Yeah, but
there is enough funny for it to be on my stand-up album, and
yeah.
But I processed,
both of these shows, can we access them?
Well, all of my albums are there. You on Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, YouTube, and then the other thing is, like, I've done several storytelling shows, and then which are not stand up. Like, I did a storytelling show probably 3 weeks ago now, and a guy came up to me afterwards. He was like, "I just want to ask you a question." And then he mentioned a person in the story that I told on the story. And I said, "Who?" And he says it again. I'm like, "Oh, fictionalized names have been changed, my friend. And that story's from 11 years ago." And he's like, "That story was so vulnerable. It was so funny. It was so powerful. Your stand-up is not all." And I was like, "Stop talking. Stop talking. I don't actually need the feedback." And
it's apples and oranges. It's apples and oranges. What are you comparing them?
But I will say that, so I wrote I wrote a 30-minute solo show back in like 99, 98 about my dad. It was called Salesmen and Thieves. And a lot of that stuff got turned into stand-up about my dad. And it was me coming to peace with the person that my father is, loving the things that I can love about him, being annoyed at the things that are not great about him. And one of my favorite things that my brother Phil told me was, he said, "I once asked Dad if he had any regrets." And he said, "No." And Phil was like, "None. You have no regrets."
And Phil said, "Well, actually, Dad, I've made a list of what your regrets should be. I have a list of things
where you might want to look into these 9 items." But it's so funny because I read a really great book once that defined, regrets get to be this place where, like, if you could change one thing in your life.
Yeah.
And if you did, maybe your life would be worse. So if he had a regret, if he wished that something didn't happen, there should be, then maybe his life would not be the life that it is. And he is an 84-year-old man who gets to hang out with a lot of very decent people who care about him.
Yeah.
So he's kind of won the lottery there.
Yeah, it was, first of all, great story. I'm really glad you told it, Jackie. It means a lot to me that you told a story that's really is an important story. And perhaps, the most important thing that happened to you in your life is losing your mom at that age.
For sure.
And
it's really shaped my life. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, our moms, first of all, we're daughters, and so the connection, I think for me, that mother-daughter connection is incredibly profound. And because not only because they carried us in their tummies, but because we're the same sex. And there's just a connection there that I think is so profound. But it was also, and I didn't know any of this about you, so thank you for sharing that. But it was also kind of interesting because, of course, when I hear you talk about your dad, I'm just seeing this 80-year-old guy, right, who hit on Maria Bamford, and which is very funny, by the way. And But then when you talk about him and to be made aware that, oh, he was an 18-year-old guy once.
Yeah.
Right? He was an 18-year-old guy once who got a 16-year-old girl pregnant.
He was 17, she was 16. So the good news is that they were both underage, I guess. So like they were both, it wasn't. And yeah, there's so much to the thing about my dad is like, I do a joke on one of the albums about how my father, we found out that my dad had been having an affair for 9 years. And what he had to say about that was not 9 years in a row. And you're like, all right.
Wait a minute.
Hilarious. All right, Captain Hilarious. All right. And so it's like, there's things, he's done unlikable things. But when I look at my own life, I have done unlikable things. And there is, I got the one dad, you know? There's get what you can from it to some extent. And I appreciate the fact that I did that because it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's what the good things, the beautiful things that I get from him now.
Yeah.
Are a gift of me making peace with that, of me finding some serenity in the fact that he gets to be a person. He gets to be a flawed man who, I do another joke about him where he was a lot like radiation when we were kids. He affected all of our lives, but we never saw him. Which is, you know, they're good jokes, but they're also like, Jesus.
Oh, you know, when I went back and did stand up for a very short amount of time in, I don't know, 2017, I think it was, I did a joke about my dad being a sociopath. And and if I did it too early in the set, people would go, oh, you know, because they're worried. It's like, no, it's funny. Right. And so, but it's great to hear that you have this, that you've come to peace about him and that you see him as a whole person, because when my dad died, none of us kids had spoken to him in years. So I had not made peace with him. And, you know, people love to say, you've got to forgive. And I was all like, well, I was like, sis, who? Like, why do I have to forgive? And then forgiveness was sort of visited upon me. It just happened because I continued to work on myself. And it was a relief for me.
Yeah. Yeah. If you refeel all of those negative feelings, someone who is dead is beating you up.
Exactly. You can't
live like that.
It doesn't get me anywhere. But I kept thinking if I forgave him, somehow I was letting him off the hook.
Guess what? The only person on the hook is you.
Exactly.
He's been off the hook the whole time. My mother.
My dad was never on the hook.
He's never on the hook.
No,
he was fine. He was fine. My mother, when I was about 13 years old, because she died in terrible circumstances. She was, it was a drunk driving accident where her boyfriend at the time, you know, they had been separated. And so her boyfriend, they were on a Harley Davidson and they flipped off an overpass. And they got run over by cars.
Oh, honey, did you know all that? Did you know those details when you were 7?
Yeah. But I don't, I think so. I think that's what my brothers no doubt told me. The weird thing is I didn't recognize my dad when he came with the cop to tell us that she was dead. I was like, who's this other guy? And my brother Russ, who was his bag man, my brother Russ was like, that's Dad, dummy. And I was like, oh, Dad. Interesting. Anyway, so, but the thing is, when I was about 13, I wanted to find out who my mother was.
Mm.
And I wanted to figure out I needed to figure out if she was this saint that a couple of my brothers thought she was, that had been vilified, or if she was this demon that was never spoken of. And it turns out she's something in the middle.
Right.
She tried really hard. She tried for 10 years to be frickin' June Cleaver, and she couldn't do it alone. My father was in the service and was gone a lot. And she was 18, she was 20, she was 22, she was 24, and then she was 26.
Yeah.
And she had one kid after another.
Wow.
And he kept showing up for getting her pregnant, and he would go raise money and give her his check. And then, he's like, to some extent, men think that they, called shotgun on everything fun. Like, women love to stay home, right? You love to stay home with the kids.
Right.
That's what you gave birth to them. You must love them. You don't like errands. I'm gonna go do an errand. You raise these kids, and so it was that 50s kind of dad thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Wow.
Anyway, but so I realized when I was 13 till probably 30,
Yeah,
I was mad at her. I didn't like her. I didn't like what I learned about her. I didn't like anything. And what I had to do was,
and also she left you,
she left.
not intentionally, but somewhere in there.
Out. She checked out all the time. She was a hitter. She was abusive. And, but the thing is it took me till I was about 30. And it was very funny because Nancy Kashian, my stepmother, used to say a very funny line. She was like, if you were born in the rain, I was in my 20s or 30s. And she said, if you were born in the rain, that's sad. You're soaking wet. If you're 30 years old and you're still standing in the rain, get the fuck out of the rain.
Wow.
You're 30.
Wow.
You're a grown up. And she's like, you got to process this stuff. And so.
But you did, Jackie.
And I did. And it took me that long to realize that she too was a child, and then an overwhelmed adult, and then also got sucked into partying too hard, and died tragically.
Yeah.
I picture her in heaven, which is a place that has no children. And
that's heaven for her. No children.
Heaven for her. Possibly we will all visit her in heaven as successful adults and go, you did the best you can. I totally get that.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, that is a hell of a story. And you've done 2 solo shows, one about mom, one about dad. I've only done one about dad. I got to do one about mom, obviously, now. But I mean, you've got a memoir in you. I don't know if that's anything you're interested in doing, but my God, it's a hell of a story, Jackie.
Stuff, but it's hard for me to write. I have a hard time because it's the instant gratification of stand-up comedy is not.
Yeah, it's definitely different, and it's such a solo pursuit. At least stand-up, you're working on a joke, you go out, you find out whether it's working or not, and then you can tweak it and all of that. Yeah, it's very immediate. So forget it. You don't need to write it.
My dad loves the solo show about him. He has it on VHS.
What a surprise.
He's like, he goes, sometimes when I miss you, I put that tape into that show. And I was like, do you miss me or do you miss me talking about you? And he's like, mostly me, you talk about me. But he was like, you should do one about your siblings.
Wow. There you go.
And I was like, that one's actually been almost impossible.
Yeah. Well, that's a tall order. I only have 2 brothers, so I might be able to do that, but you've got 5 siblings.
4 brothers and a sister. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. If somebody was going through a similar thing, and I'm going to talk about like sort of before, like when you were in the dark time in the 90s and you went to therapy and you stopped drinking. If somebody was going through something like that and they hadn't found their therapist yet, or what kind of advice or what suggestion would you give to them?
I would say in all cases, because the thing is once you start asking for help, that's the hardest part, right? Where you're like, I should be able to do this myself. I'm a very strong person. My childhood has made me very strong. And then you think, well, why can't I do this by myself? Because you're a person. Because we all need help sometimes. So the biggest problem can be when you go looking for help, it isn't the right help for you right away. Like you pick a therapist and the therapist isn't very good. By the way, I would pick a therapist of your same gender. Just because otherwise you get sucked into this weird pissing contest. So don't do it. Don't, you'll beat yourself up. And, but I would say that if you try a therapist and you don't like that therapist, don't feel bad about it. Try another one. There's literally millions of therapists.
Yeah, and there are bad ones out there, and there are even ones that are good but might not be a good fit for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the thing I would say about the addiction and drinking, especially coming out of quarantine, where we're all just sitting around, I put on 30 pounds, Nelsie.
Oh, honey.
Yeah. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Because of the eating. Yeah, that's why.
Really?
It turns out.
Is that?
Yeah.
Turns out if you eat too much, you gain weight. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I would say that if you are having problems with any kind of sort of, and you're like, well, I'm just substance. Yeah. Like I tried to drink. I tried to stop drinking by myself. I was like, well, obviously I should stop drinking. I got a DUI.
Yeah.
No one was more surprised than myself to find out that I couldn't do it alone. I thought, no, well, I don't drink anymore. It turns out, if I'm offered a drink, I would drink. And once I started drinking, I could not predict how much I would drink.
Yeah.
And that is some sort of literally a medical allergy to alcohol.
Absolutely.
It literally affects my brain cells in a different way where I don't know.
And that's been proven. That's been proven medically.
Right.
That...
And so I am allergic to alcohol, so I can't have the first one. So what I do is I have to figure out a way to not have the first one. And the first one, if I can not do it, that's great. If my mind starts lying to me, which is what it tends to do after a certain amount of time, it'll go, well, you haven't drank it like 3 months. You could probably have a couple.
Yeah.
You could probably have one. Even then, even when my mind is lying to me, it lies to me in doubles. It doesn't even lie to me in singles. It's just like, you could probably have a shot and a beer. What just happened?
Shot and a beer, not maybe a glass of wine, a shot and a beer.
Not a glass of wine, not even one beer, a shot and a beer. So, like, what I would say is, if you try to stop drinking and it's something you've wanted to do, and you find that you can't stop drinking by yourself, don't be afraid to try some help. Nothing is in stone. Much like therapy, you could just try it.
Exactly.
And it can't hurt.
Yeah. And the nice thing about like going to an AA meeting is you can just sit in the back and listen. And you can just, I mean, if that's your thing.
Or NA or AA or DA, because there's Debtors Anonymous, OA. And
everybody in there has sat in that room and for the first time, has been there for the first time.
And if you're sitting in like at any kind, Declutterers Anonymous, whatever it is, like, you will listen to somebody tell a story, Al-Anon, adult children of alcoholics, whatever it is. You sit in that room and you see like an old grizzled dude tell a story, and you're like, why do I have something in common with that dude? And if you look for what you have in common with some of those people, you will hear something that might help you.
Yeah.
And it literally can't hurt.
Absolutely.
You might as well throw it at the wall and see if it works.
It's so funny because we have this, and part of it's cultural, that we have this idea that asking for help is weak, when in fact it's incredibly brave.
Because it's so freaking hard.
It's so hard.
Think about yourself. I would say that to anybody listening. Think about how many times you thought, well, I should just ask for help. And you're like, I could probably do it myself. It's the hardest part is to actually say, could you help me?
Yeah.
You ever try to carry a couch up a stairs yourself? You can't do it. You're fucked.
And also when you ask for help, when you take that risk and you're vulnerable, the person usually that you're asking for is A, happy to help, and B, even there's something so I don't want to use the word flattering, but it's so nice to be trusted in that way. It's a huge compliment to be trusted in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Prior to me not stopping drinking, there was no Jackie in team.
Yeah. Right. It's like,
no one was asking me for help because I probably wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
I'd probably cancel in the last minute. And so whenever somebody does ask me for help and I can help them, that I get some self-esteem from that. Granted, I want a small statue, but
because that's one of the things I notice about you is that you have this huge generosity of spirit, and I don't think that that's, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that that's always. I don't think that's always in the comedy culture, but I could be wrong about that because I do think there's stereotypes about like look, it's a lot of wounded people wanting attention, right?
Yeah.
And
it
and I
is.
say that as a wounded person who wants attention. That's right. I think that, but you have such a generosity of spirit. And do you think that that's something that you've always
It's a
had, or
learned
that's
skill. Oh, it's a learned skill. The only way to practice being a decent person is to be a decent person.
yeah,
And then once it's muscle memory, you know? I used to lie a lot. I used to steal on occasion. It was not okay. So to learn to not do those things and to become trustworthy is muscle memory eventually.
yeah.
I haven't stolen anything in 20 odd years. It's very exciting. Congratulations, Jackie.
All right. So we end with 3 questions.
Okay, let's do it.
And I'm going to give them to you one at a time. So our first question is there something that you hope to lose in the next year?
Yeah, I'd like to lose that 30 pounds.
I knew that's what you were
Might as
going
well
to say.
lob that to me. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good. And you know what? It's doable.
Yeah.
It's doable because you got it because you were stuck inside. So
Yeah, and now I have a dog to walk. So it'll work out.
Exactly. Is there something you hope to gain in the next year?
Material things, I guess. I'm trying to get this. I just recorded my album, a new album, and a new special that I paid for myself. Though I had fans also, I didn't do a GoFundMe. Literally, some of my fans were like, here is some money. And I'm like,
It's fantastic.
I will take your money. Thank you very much. And I appreciate it because, Netflix and HBO Max and all these people have these, they buy specials. I would love to sell this special and make that money back.
Yes. Okay. Yes. It's going to happen. That's my magic wand.
Thank you.
It's going to happen.
I'll take a good thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I see it happening. And is there something you hope you never lose?
The basic answer is, of course, some sort of gratitude, just the gratefulness for what I have and the willingness. I think, you know what? The willingness to learn, to be teachable. Just because I am more than willing to tell you what I'm wrong about, I am sometimes unwilling to listen to you about what I'm wrong about. How great would that be?
Yeah.
As if I just shut up and someone told me, and then I could learn something. This is very true with racism, with different gender studies, with sexuality, with different, I'm 56 years old, so I wish to be teachable and be willing to be teachable.
God, that's
I
good.
would love that.
Yeah. And it sounds like you are. And because we are in a time now where we've got to learn some shit, and I'm 64. So I was like, I grew up in the 70s and I have a gay brother and like my my naivete about how what I thought I knew has been pointed out to me so much again and again. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be.
It's exhausting. The learning curve right now for Whitey Magoo's is super steep. And you're just like,
did you say for Whitey Magoo? Did you say for Whitey Magoo?
Whitey Magoo's and menfolk is super steep right now. And everybody, and we all want to be a good ally. We all think that we were a good ally. And so the difference between those two places on that line is the place that I have to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
I never saw it. And I never saw it because I was in my own fishbowl, going around my own tiny castle. And I didn't see out of it because the water distorts things. I don't know. I had an analogy or a metaphor.
Yeah. I'm with you. I had my own fishbowl and, I thought my fishbowl was lovely and I'm a good person. Right.
Yeah. We're not terrible, but it's thoughtlessness and we have to be thoughtful.
Yes. And cluelessness and that whole thing of like not knowing what I didn't know. And anyway. All right. So I like that. That's a really good one. So Jackie, this was fantastic. I mean, I knew that I was going to enjoy you because I've enjoyed your stand-up and I've heard you on podcasts and you're just funny and smart, but you kind of blew my mind a little bit. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm psyched. I'm psyched it worked out. Super fun.
Me too.
It was great meeting you.
Too. Yeah, great meeting you too. And the smile looks fantastic. Okay, now that story blew my mind. I'm just going to say, that was a fucking great story. Not great in that like happy with unicorns and rainbows, but man, she gave it up.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a lot.
That was a lot. And I knew there was a reason I liked her. Shared childhood trauma. I can spot it through, across the country because she's in California. That was amazing. And, I just want to say she's touring again, as you guys know. And this, I think, comes out on the 16th. She's going to be in Santa Cruz on the 21st. She's going to be at the Alameda Comedy Club on that's September 3rd. She's going to open for Maria Bamford at Flappers on, what is that, the 9th, Ronnie?
September 9th.
Yeah. And the DC Comedy Loft on December 16th. Oxnard and La Brea, I'm assuming is a comedy club. Again, opening for Maria Bamford October 8th. And just go to her website. She's out there. She's got, as you know, she's got a new album coming out. Go see her. Go support live comedy. Support Jackie. And you're going to love it. I forgot to ask her because we were so busy talking about childhood trauma. But I do love it why I said something about trauma. And she was like, you think? It's like when you go through shit, you're like, was that trauma? Oh, I thought it was just my childhood,
Yeah.
So anyway, we don't have a letter. We have a phone call in reaction to.
We have
right? A voicemail.
We have some audio. We have a voice message. Yes, we do.
Yeah. From last week, after Sarah Fulmer, who is working on getting her groove back, we said, guys, if you have a story about getting your groove back and how you did it, let us know. So what do we got, Ronnie?
So we got this voice message. I'm going to go ahead and play it. So it sounds like...
Sounds like she needs to get her groove back a little bit right now.
A little bit.
First of all, thank you for sharing. And yeah.
We didn't get a name there.
We don't know who that was, but thank you. Thank you for the voicemail. And all those working out, stop drinking. I mean, if you're drinking a lot and it's impairing things, and alcohol is a depressant. Jackie was talking about that, how drinking affects everything. I mean, if you're having, depending how much you're doing it. Yeah. So working out, endorphins are the best. Ronnie, you got to start working out. Am I right?
I need my dolphins.
There's dolphins and then the dolphins' cousin, endorphins. Well, thank you for that. So, and getting organized. It's good to get organized. You know what I realized? Self-care improves your mood. Like just when I make my bed in the morning, which you think, why would you make your bed? Because it's just going to get messy again when you get in it at night. But every time I walk into my room and my bed is made, I smile. Having a nicely organized space is a form of self-care.
Oh yeah,
That's all I have to say. I mean, Jackie talked about so much, but one of the things that I thought was really interesting that she talked about was her stepmom, who gave her all this structure, and probably as a kid, like, you're giving me structure, you're giving me chores, you're making me make my bed. It's, as a kid, you're like, you don't want to do it, especially if you've come from no structure. But looking back, it was this big gift because she came in and right. So I feel like and it doesn't necessarily have to be a step parent, but if you've had an experience where at the time you think this is fucked up or whatever, and then you look back and go, thank God for that person, for that situation.
Yeah, I think so. That happens.
Right?
Because when you're a kid, you're like, you just want to do whatever is easiest, have fun, whatever, right? And then you realize later on that it was something that was taught to you. It's good for you.
Yeah. Unlike my father, who there were no rules. And at the time I'm like, dad rules, fuck school. I look back and go, not sure that was. Yeah. So conversely, if you look back at something that you thought was awesome at the time, and now you look back and go, ooh, that was kind of fucked up. Yeah. You can give us that one too. Please follow us on Instagram at Losing It Podcast, on Twitter at Losing It Podcast, on TikTok at Losing It Podcast. You can follow me actually at Nelsie Writes on Instagram and on TikTok. Wherever you listen, please review and subscribe. Tell your friends. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can subscribe, but also write in the comment if you have a good Losing It story. You can DM us on Instagram if you have a good Losing It story, or contact us at losingitcontact@gmail.com. I'm just going to say, don't poop in the ocean. Bye.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. You came and you listened to the story. I hope so much that it didn't make you sorry, and I hope so much that you'll come back again.
Losing It, hosted by Nelsie Spencer. Produced by me, Ronnie Whaley. Theme song by Hunter Williams. Follow us online on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all podcasting platforms at Losing It Podcast. Viewers can email Nelsie with questions or comments about life, writing, comedy, or even your own Losing It story for a chance to be on the Losing It Podcast at losingitcontact@gmail.com. For everything Nelsie and everything Losing It, visit us at nelsiespencer.com.